Today I'm speaking with Eugenia Keegan, Vice President, Jackson Family Wines, Oregon. Keegan started her wine journey in 1976 at Joseph Swan Winery in Sonoma County, one of the cradles of California Pinot Noir. She's gone on to a distinguished career of winemaking globally that eventually brought her to Oregon's Willamette Valley. Her many commitments go far beyond her duties at JFW. When she isn't busy mentoring aspiring wine growers, Keegan serves on many Oregon industry boards. There's no better person to talk to about the state of Oregon wine and its very bright future. Eugenia, welcome to Gizmondi on Wine. Thanks for joining us for this discussion today.
My pleasure, Anthony. Great to see you.
People were wary when Jackson Family Wine showed up in Oregon. Have you managed to seduce the crowd?
I think so. I think that we are thought of quite warmly now. But there was a lot of apprehension, I think, about a larger California company coming to Oregon. But most people are familiar with the bigger brands that are owned by Jackson Family Wines and not the smaller independent estate brands that we have all over the world. So I think once we actually released wine and they saw the quality of the wine, the caliber of packaging, the whole approach to what we were doing, I think it was clear that we were going to be a good part of the community.
Well, I know when you were drawn there, there's such a strong Pinot Noir ethos in Oregon, but how is it different than New Zealand or California or even Burgundy?
Well, obviously it is its own growing region. We like to compare growing regions, but you know that they're all very, very different. And Oregon started talking about itself like Burgundy, but it's not really like Burgundy. We have much more of a climate that is maritime, etc., and so it's not continental like Burgundy. But I think that if there are similarities, the approach to making wine, and certainly in Oregon, everything is done on a very small scale, and the sense of place is the most important thing, the site itself. So I think that's where there's a lot of similar to Burgundy, where there's a lot of similarities to California really in climate. Yes, it's a shorter growing season and a cooler growing season, but it's still drought during the summer and dry, and we have the same time frame for water. So there are comparisons, but then it's its own world, and I think the beauty is that Oregon is now being understood as its own growing and respected and appreciated as its own growing region.
Well, JFW has deep roots in Chardonnay as well in California, and I'm wondering whether they will pursue that in Oregon maybe at a higher level than we've seen before, or whether that's something that might interest you and your wineries.
I think that you're reading our Cliff Notes, Anthony. That's exactly what we're doing. To your point, JFW is synonymous with Chardonnay, and we have a very bullish program. I think we are the largest Chardonnay grape grower in Oregon at this point, and all of our brands, except La Crema, have a Chardonnay.
But the Chardonnay in Oregon has never really come up to the same level. Is it just not paying attention, or do you think it's not a place for Chardonnay?
A combination of things. Chardonnay was originally planted in the Willamette Valley along with Roussillon and Pinot Noir, and Pinot Noir obviously stuck. But we had the wrong clones of Chardonnay. That was number one. But also, and I find this the ultimate irony of having this conversation, is that the marketplace was introduced to a California Chardonnay that literally owned the category. And of course, that was Kendall Jackson's Vintner's Reserve. And that became the de facto flavor of New World Chardonnay. So it's taken Oregon, and Oregon tried to do some of that, and it cannot make that kind of Chardonnay. And now we're very focused on Chardonnay. When we started looking at Chardonnay critically 7 years ago, and we were doing a tasting, we could hardly get 40 different wines, and now we do the same tasting, and we have 250 entrants. So you can see how it's grown, and so the focus has grown as well.
Yeah. Well, that cool climate style is really coming on. We love it up here in BC. Well, let's talk a bit about your wineries. Maybe we'll talk about their personalities and their strengths, how you see them now at this point.
Yeah, their strengths are twofold. The vineyards that we own in Oregon are absolutely spectacular. They're all A-plus vineyards. And each estate has its own vineyard, so that really helps as well. So that is part of defining the personality, certainly the site, and secondly is the winemaker. So each of these brands have their own vineyard, their own winemaker, and their own facility. So although they're under the umbrella of Jackson Family Wines, they're all run as independent estates.
And they're spread out, like it's kind of like a giant, I would say a giant triangle perhaps. Is Oregon really that different in that small of an area, or would you characterize it as a not so small area?
Well, the Willamette Valley is, I think, 100 miles long and 60 miles wide or something. So
Hmm.
the Willamette Valley is pretty large, but the concentration of vineyards are in the northern Willamette Valley. So Yamhill, Carlton, Eola, Amity, Dundee Hills, those areas.
Hmm. So the wineries themselves, Xena Crown, Grand Moraine, Willakenzie, Penner-Ash, uh, do they all do something different in your mind?
Oh, yes. Yes, absolutely. So the winemaking, although there are lots of traditions, I was chatting with a very famous California Pinot Noir winemaker a couple days ago, and we don't do things differently. So, or differently than Burgundy or New Zealand. There's kind of a way we make Pinot Noir, a way we make Chardonnay, and it's pretty universal. And it's usually that these are the best techniques, and that's why they've become the techniques that everybody uses. But the site says something completely differently. And even if we make them identically, which we don't, but even if we did, the sites would speak much more loudly than the technique.
You're big on sustainability. Have you been that way your whole life, or have you grown with that cause?
I think we've learned a lot about sustainability. If you look at agriculture historically on the West Coast, well, around the world for that matter, the things that we were taught to do, the way you would lay out a vineyard and plant a vineyard and disc, we were
Hmm.
taught that that was the norm. And you wanted your vineyards to be immaculate, the vineyard floor to be immaculate. So you would drive your tractor through there. All wrong, all wrong, all wrong. All you're doing is blowing, thousands of years of organic material that's grown into these vineyards, and you're blowing it up into the atmosphere. Bad for the vineyard soil, bad for the atmosphere. You're driving a tractor, bad for the atmosphere, compacting the soil. So everything that we learned growing up in farming really is probably wrong. And so it's really a learning curve, and that's an evolution. So JFW is bullish on sustainability. It's a big, big part of our company values and the initiatives that we do.
Hmm.
But it's for us as a culture, as agriculturalists, we're learning about what we were doing wrong and trying to correct that.
You spend a lot of time on boards in Oregon. How important are they in a wine industry that's small and young like Oregon?
I think that some of there's not just one answer to that question, but at my age, some of it's giving back. I've been doing this for 45 years. I'm probably going to do it another 5 or 10 or whatever. And it just seems to me that all of that opportunity that I've been given through the industry, through the wine industry, it's my opportunity to give back with my experience. And I'm very fortunate that at Jackson Family Wines, being part of the community is a big deal. And
Hmm.
it's not a requirement of my job, but it's certainly heavily supported by management to be involved in the community. And then the other side of that is to your point, we're a small community and we're reasonably young and maybe not as sophisticated. And so it's an opportunity for us to work collectively. And collaboration is a really big part of the community, Willamette Valley community values. So it's part of that collaboration as well.
Okay, before I wrap it up, I want to ask a little bit about Pinot Noir itself and the effect of the soils. How would you describe an Oregon Pinot Noir to people in British Columbia sitting here today listening to you?
I think of Oregon wines as fresh. So the Pinots are fresh. So they're fresh fruited. They're not stewed or baked or jammy. Everything is very, very fresh. And a good part of that is the acid and the structure that we get from our cool climate. Certainly, the soil types manifest themselves differently in the wines. Sedimentary soils tend to be darker fruits, more black. There's more tannin. They're a little bit more robust in that way. Whereas the volcanic soils are a little bit more red fruited. The tannins are really fine and elegant. So the soil does really manifest itself. Most people start with a Willamette Valley wine, and so chances are they have all soil types inside of that. But I would say fresh, fresh, fresh.
Right. Uh, okay. What is the future, do you believe, in Oregon? What will the direction be in the next 10 to 20 years in Oregon?
Well, we haven't even scratched the surface of Chardonnay. We're known for Pinot Noir. We're about 70% of our production is Pinot in the Willamette Valley, and we have a long, long way to go to catch up with quality and perception and volume on Chardonnay. And right behind that, Anthony, is sparkling wine. So Grand
Uh-huh.
Moraine is very bullish about sparkling. We have a little at Willakenzie that we've started. So sparkling is right behind it. So we've got at least 10 years of good news coming to the wine world.
Love to hear that. Okay, we're going to have to wrap it up there. Thanks so much for joining us today. I think you've inspired many British Columbians to get down there as soon as that border's open and tour Oregon wine country and catch up with the many exciting wineries that JFW has down there. Thanks so much, Eugenia.
It's our pleasure, Anthony. Our tasting rooms are open and we can't wait to host you. Thank you.